Thank you. I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Playground Working Group of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, Thursday, August 17th, 2023. We are starting at 8:50 a.m. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from July 20th, 2023. Are there any changes to the minutes that Pam generously put together for us? I think the dates are all right, which is good. I don't have any personal changes. Does anybody else?
I don't see any.
I'm trying to think, maybe we don't even have a quorum now that I'm thinking about it. So maybe we need one.
Right, Sarah would make a quorum.
You can go back and approve it then. I just realized that, and we'll go. Let's just move forward then. And wait until she comes. And if she doesn't come, we'll just push it to the next meeting, Pam, and not.
Okay.
Is that somebody? No. Anyway.
No.
Okay, so the third item on the agenda is to talk about McGuan Playground. And I just wanted to really thank the committee for everything you've done. I think that the feedback's been really positive, and I'm very happy about that. As you know, Pam did get a couple of, concerns in the beginning, especially when it was first installed, but I think she really did a fantastic job talking about what the committee did, and why we came about with the design that I think is more challenging for that space. But what we had there was very much geared towards younger children. And I think that was one of our biggest concerns, was that we weren't serving all the kids that were playing on that playground and challenging them. So I think as a committee, we then created a design that would accommodate both age groups, right, in that space. And that's a challenge, right? Because you've got a lot of younger children and a lot of older children. But I think as a committee, we did a great job. And I guess the other thing I want to make sure people realize is that, I've been on the commission for, God, I don't know, 16 years almost. It's a very long time. So there are going to be decisions that, you do in anything in public service that people are going to say, hey, I don't like it, but our job is really about serving like the community in the best way possible. And if we go about the process, making sure that, we have a committee that's very inclusive of people in different parts, we did do that. Like, we have a very inclusive committee with different an age range to vet all of these playgrounds. And Pam also has her expertise, and she's talking to playground vendors who then have to abide by all these safety rules. I think we should feel confident in our decision. With that being said, if we see something that we're concerned about, we can always revisit. But I also want you to keep in mind that we don't have to always be, like take everything, absorb, and then, we can discuss and see if there's anything else. But I think we're in a good place, because from what Pam tells me, there's been a lot of fantastic feedback. So anyway, everybody should feel really good. The only other thing I was going to bring up at this point is that we did lose 2 committee members just because they weren't participating, they weren't being really involved on a committee where we need participation and a quorum to vote. I think it's very important to have those numbers. And also, like, I'm looking at the group, and it seems like we have a lot of elementary school age kids. Maybe we look to inviting also some preschool age parents. And, we did cast a wide net, but I think if we could proactively do that, that would be, a good addition to our committee. 1 or 2 people, 2 would be great. If you know of anybody with preschool age children, I'd prefer people with just preschool age, just because I think that what ends up happening is people with older kids with preschool tend to skew older. That's the way we always do that. That's how my kids played. It's like she was playing with her brothers. So let's try to find families that have, younger preschool age children, if we can, and add them to the committee, because I think, especially with Cherry Lawn, I think that'll be helpful. It's going to be a bigger preschool space, I feel. So anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize, but go ahead, guys. Jump in.
Can I just say one thing about the playground, the McGuan playground. I went with my son and he loved it. And I had sent Pam an email, just saying, like, after we got some of those emails, I was like, let me just go and see how this is all myself. My only concern, and I think we might be able to add a suggestion or add a tool to maybe fix it, which is why I'm bringing it up, is I guess I was under the impression that the big tall panel, the climbing structure, the big one, I think, keeping in mind that we are trying to do as ADA as most ADA accessible stuff, seems like those panels are really high off the ground. So my little guy Jack, who's 4, he was on his tippy toes before he can touch those panels, and I didn't know if maybe, I don't think they can come down to the ground, but I didn't know if they can add a panel under those panels just for the people who are in a wheelchair. They can't reach any of them.
Huh, I didn't notice that.
And I took a picture of Jack, just an FYI. I think I can probably share it, but I took a picture to show how the climbing structure, just how high off the ground it is for those. Because I think one of our things was that we were trying to provide panels for people on the ground level. And this is the picture. I don't know if you guys can see.
Hey, Sarah's just joining in right now in case.
Oh,
you need to
perfect.
approve her.
I'm gonna look at this. That's pretty high up.
Can you
Yeah,
send
so
that
Jack-
to me, Ruth? Can you text that to me?
I could text them all. Yeah, I took a bunch of pictures of Jack, but yeah, Jack is, just so you all know, he's 4.5.
Right.
And he is probably like 3.5 feet, maybe ish. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to just show, because I was just, I'll text it to you, Pam. I didn't know if maybe we can add something under it, because I assume there's stuff that's on there we can't move down. But if we were to add one more panel that's ground level,
Yeah.
then maybe we can tweak some of those, because all those ones like these, I took this picture too, all of these are over his head. So if a child did come with a wheelchair, unless they're in a standing walker, which could be a choice, they might be able to reach it, like an older child with a pushing walker.
So I guess
it's
were
such
those,
a good suggestion.
yeah, it's a great suggestion. Were those panels originally also for the structure itself, right? Inside, right? If you're on the deck, you could use them. Yeah. So that's why it's hard to be accommodating both. But I do feel like what you said is like, let's add some of those to the bottom or something like that would be great. You know, I'd be interested in doing that. Okay. That's a great suggestion, Ruth.
Yeah, I'll send that. If you do you have my phone, my cell number, Ruth?
I'm gonna take it right now. Go ahead.
203-627-7338.
Got it.
And
Yeah,
I'll send that off to John.
And I had one more suggestion.
Okay.
On the swing set, I notice a lot of swings now are coming with chains that have that rubbery feeling on the bottom. Jack's fingers were kind of getting caught in the chain, and I'm just thinking his fingers are kind of chubby. It felt like they can get pinched if a child were ever to jump off it. I just thought it was, now that's how they made all the swings, because they it's easier for them to hold. And I don't know if that's just they can swap out a chain. It was just something I did notice, that it was the first time I'd seen a new playground with not the rubber on the bottom.
I'll take a look at that.
I took a picture. I'll send you the picture as well.
Okay.
Those are great. That's great feedback. So again, like Sarah, you missed the part where I kind of did a quick about McGuan, basically that, we've got really positive feedback, couple of negative things in the beginning, and that Pam did a great job communicating with them, just reaching out and telling them. And I said that as a committee, we just have to be, we want to get the feedback, but we also want to understand that we had a process and we can trust in what we did, because we did consciously decide to make that space usable for older kids too. So that's a balancing act. And, and if, especially the group of parents that did give us feedback, I think they've traditionally used it with their younger children. So they're used to the space being just predominantly designed towards that. So at the same time, we're open to feedback and want to improve, even if it's something we've previously built like this. That's brand new. And Ruth has provided some great feedback. The other thing we talked about is that I would like to add some parents that on the committee, because we lost two families that weren't participating, that have only preschool children, because I feel like people that have older kids tend to play up anyway. So I'd like to get the feedback from people that have younger children and how they feel about anything we do going forward. So that was it. So now we're just up to the feedback from you guys on McGuan.
Ruth, can you hold up that picture of the chain?
Sure. Yeah, I just sent them to Pam. So this is what the chain looks like.
Yeah.
And this is Jack on the chain, and you could just see like his hands, right? His fingers. His were kind of, again, I only know because when I was a kid, I know a child whose finger got stuck in there when he jumped off, and it was traumatic for me. So that's one thing I always look at. But nowadays I feel like, and I have a picture of the swings that I use as a therapist, but this is a lot of the swings now have this on the bottom.
Yeah.
It's a rubber coating over them. And so I didn't know, I assume it's a quick swap out because it's not like we're changing any structure. It's just and it's usually only like 2-3 feet covering it, just so that their hands are softer and they can't get pinched.
I've also seen them with the like a tube, like a rubber, just covering the whole chain.
Like a really thin noodle.
Yeah.
That
Like
just covers it.
Covers everything.
It's gotta be an easy fix.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion, and we needed to hear something like that. Anything else that people
But
have?
Ruth, the chain itself wasn't disconnected. You know how because sometimes the metal needs to be pinched in to close it.
No, you mean for Jack?
Yeah.
It's just a plain metal chain, but the gaps are kind of wide between the links.
Okay.
Like if you look just in between that hole, in there,
Right.
a little kid's fingers can actually go through that.
Through that. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So my concern, again, just thinking, like Jack's fingers can go through that, and his fingers are rather chubby.
I hear you. Yes.
But if it was that little bit of that rubber that goes on the outside of the chain, this, I have to take the child out of the picture. Hold on. Therapy. If you have this, it's like coating.
Yes. Yeah.
Their fingers can't go through that. It just seems a little more kid friendly.
Okay.
Yeah, let's look at options. We're open
We
to
might have to swap the chains out. I don't know that there's actually a rubber coating that goes over the chain. I think you have to purchase it that way.
Yeah.
Or you could just put that tube I was talking about, like a rubber.
Yeah, so let me
almost like you cut the hose out and you swoop it in, and it's something they hold on to, and it's better.
It's a really terrific request. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay. Anybody else have anything? Because the rest of our agenda, we really need to finish work on too.
Sarah, did you go to the playground and with your kids?
I did. I swung by last week quickly with my oldest, and I thought it looked great. It was busy, so it was fun to see. I actually ran into Patty yesterday out in town, and I was telling her, and again, this is not a playground that I have gone to more than maybe 3 times, and I kind of chuckled to myself because it was a beautiful day too. So again, we're super busy. That it definitely felt like the poor nannies had to work extra hard. It's like the playground just is a little more challenging now, and so you could tell that they were like, the little kids really wanted to go on the bigger one, and they wanted to explore it, and that was, it was great. And Maddox enjoyed it. He kind of did a quick little whatever, and of course, it was hard to see in some of the pictures, and I think this is also good for going forward with the other playgrounds, is just getting almost like a 360 view of everything. And it wasn't until I was there in person that I could really see the space between the top of the ladder. I mean, it's a straight ladder, and how much you have to step over to get to that top part. He wouldn't even do it. He's like, I'm going to come back down. He's almost 8. And I was like, he's also not my risk taker, like by any means. My 4-year-old probably would have been jumping right over it and would have been totally fine. But yeah, he jumped all over it. He had fun. It looked, I loved the colors. I think as a group, I think everyone really zeroed in on what worked aesthetically, right? And I think my only thing, and I know that in the other pictures that you had sent, Pam, was the one corner that's a lot higher So I know that, are we adding soil and grass? Okay.
Yeah, the soil's been added, but we're going to hydro seed this week or early next week. And
So I had been there.
Once that grass comes in, and that will form right up to the surface, right?
Okay. So that was probably the only thing that really stood out to me. And I think, and I had also, in my mind, and I don't know how many other emails you got, positive, whatever, whatever. But my other thing, again, this is where when I read your response to the 3 that you had forwarded on to us, and I thought it was so helpful. And I can't tell you how many times when I'm talking to my acquaintances or friends, and they're like, what's RTM? And I'm like, oh, it's this great thing. And you just realize that so many people don't understand how the town works and how things function, how things get done. And so, these people obviously are emailing out of, concern, and you're having to explain them like, hey, we've had meetings. This wasn't just a willy-nilly decision. And so there's a part of me where I wonder if there's going to be people who go to this specific playground knowing that it's new and it's all updated, and they're going to wonder, why isn't there more? Why is there so much space between it? And I don't know how, if there's maybe we have discussed this in the beginning, but letting people know that, again, there was a reason, and it's because we're trying to keep it, even more compliant than the other playgrounds, so that if someone has a wheelchair or if someone has a wall, whatever it is, to make it even more.
And Sarah, it's all about fall zones.
Is it just the fall zones?
Right.
Okay, that's all it was.
That's why, when the swing swings out, you have to have so much space so that if a child jumps off at the top of that swing, that he's not falling into the whirl.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
So
I know. So it's more about that versus
all about fall zones.
And also, we're missing equipment.
We're missing the piece. I know.
The company cannot put things at certain fall zones near another piece of equipment. So they're the experts when it comes to how much space we have and what we can put on that space.
That's why when we wanted to do the whirls, we couldn't add those cups anywhere. Like, people are like, just put the cup there, and you're like, no, we can't because it's within the fall zone.
I love the spinner though. He added that spinner in there, that tall, thin spinner.
Yes,
it's really fast. It's cool.
Kids are gonna like that.
Okay, cool.
So that was.
Go ahead. You have something to add?
Sorry, Sarah. Continue.
No. Go.
Just something that just reminded me when Sarah was talking. This other area, I don't know if you guys. Sorry.
That's okay.
This other area on the top, at the very top. So I went up the top with my child to explore everything, and my only other concern that came up right near the big swirly slide was this really cool lookout tower, and it kind of is like it's a thicker panel on the top. Yeah. And if you look straight down, it's like it's where the ramp, it's where all it's the platform underneath it. My only concern is that 8, older kids were sitting on that because it's thicker. If they were sitting on there, up on the top tree house, I don't know if there's a bar or something we can put to prevent a child from falling backwards. The reason I say it is because it kind of looked like a bench, and it would be it would be a seat. If they were watching the baseball game up there, I could see kids sitting on it. So I don't know if anyone else noticed it, but it's thicker in the sense where I would be afraid if someone sat on it and they would fall backwards. Again, because I personally went up there and I was testing it.
And you're analyzing it, and it's fantastic, right? But do remember that a 12-year-old could get up there and climb on top of the roof. Right? Because they're always going to try to take the next level to make it more challenging. They'll climb everywhere, but it is a good thought. But I think no matter what, some kids are going to take the extra level to do something.
It's called off-label use. Yeah. But that's still a good concern, and let's keep an eye on that, Ruth. Yeah. I think that's a good thing to bring up. But yeah, I think I've told you guys a million times, I did Playground by the Sound, and when we did it, I was so horrified. The next day, you had kids climbing on the top of the lighthouse, and I almost had a heart attack.
Right.
And I was like, they're going to fall down, and I'm going to get sued, and yada yada. So like there's certain things we can control and not, but if that's something that maybe we do mention it to John, if it's easy fix, let's think about it. Why not? If it's just a bar, whatever it is, I'm open to that. But that's going to happen with this structure. I think we're going to see the same thing. I think we're going to see kids climbing on the roof.
Right. And if you put a bar there, someone will sit on the bar.
Yeah, they just, or they hang off of it. Like I was thinking about, even when they talked about the ladder, how could you enclose it? Well, guess what? The kids are going to climb up through with the enclosure outside of it, so it's just, but I do believe that the vendor has done a really good job in terms of safety, and I'm pretty happy about that. Pam G, do you have something? Pam Garrity, just because I want to move the agenda, but I want to give you a chance. You're good, right? You're good. Okay. So, the other part of the McGuan Playground discussion is about fencing, and Pam has been working with the Lions Club about, we had talked about, the shade structure they're willing to donate, which is awesome. They're also going to do the fence. And I just wanted to, before we do that piece, especially now that we've had so many people visit recently, what do you think? Is that still okay with the committee to do that fence so that kids don't kind of push into the parking lot? And that way we delineate a spot, hopefully, that we could begin to develop for a nice, comfy place for people to sit and enjoy the park. What do you think? It was going to be a few feet off the parking lot so that it allows us to mow, and it's also still a pathway. So like if you park in one of those spots in front, you could still walk and you don't have to be on the street to come back. You can't cut now because there's a fence there, but you could get through and be diverted to the entrance walkway. I just wanted to confirm before Pam accepts the donation and they start work, because they're actually getting the fencing donated and they're going to install it, and it's post and rail, so it's pretty straightforward.
They're looking to install it August 26th. So
yes, it's pretty quick.
It's a good safety mechanism, if anything.
I just think it looks nicer. I just think it finishes things off, but I'm a fence person. I know some people don't like fences. I like aesthetically. I just think it's nicer. It just feels unfinished. I think if you don't have, I don't know, just something that, like you says, delineates Susan, like, oh, this is, I don't know. It just,
right. It also gives like the coverage for the kids. I feel like, then you get like, people aren't like, what I mean? I don't know. There's just something like, it's like a little bit more covered, so any other feedback before I go to the next agenda item? Okay. So it sounds like people are okay with, we had talked, honestly, we've met about it several, a few times in person, yada, yada, but Pam's about to pull the trigger and I didn't want to be like, oh, we didn't talk about the fence. And that happens even in this group. So communication issues. So let's do that. Pam, I think we're good to go for you. Okay. The next item, because it's so important, and I think it'll give us everybody be on the same page about when we need to get things done, is the timeline for the next steps. So Pam's going to go through, right, Pam, and tell us when we need to kind of have like a final decision possibly, and when we should have our information into our finalists, things like that. So go ahead, Pam, I'll let you take.
Well, just to kind of reiterate how we got to the point with McGuan, we made a final decision just before last November, so that John was picked, Creative Recreation, and he was able to get that order in before November because there was issues with shipping and how long it was going to take. And hence, here we are in August, and it's really not 100% complete because the whirl was back ordered with a part. So I think it's imperative that we make some decisions by October if we want to see this playground for Cherry Lawn to get done by next summer. And we did discuss this a couple of meetings ago, and we're at 4 vendors right now. It seems to me during the in-person meeting that y'all had some pretty interesting, like you picked 2 vendors for the 5 to 12, and you picked a couple vendors for the 2 to 5. Again, I will reiterate, I don't know how that will overall change the pricing for each vendor. because some vendors took the entire project and, like John, had given a pretty healthy discount on all of it. So we do have to keep that in mind. But I do think we need to narrow it down to at least 2 and then have them come on like we did last year. We brought the vendors on virtually. They gave us a feedback on their design. The committee was able to make some changes, any changes they felt they wanted to do to the final design. And we then narrowed it down to our choice. But here we are, it's end of August. We have one more meeting, August 31st. We have a couple of meetings in September and a couple of meetings in October.
Yeah, and we just need to, so working backwards a little bit, we have to allow time. If we pick the 2 people, we have to allow time for them to get back to us with final designs and stuff. So I think we need to narrow down the vendors by the end of the month. And because I think it's going to take a while for us to then really hash it, like get it fine tuned. Like, you remember we talked colors, we talked surfacing. I mean, we went for, and Cherry Lawn is huge. I mean, it's going to be a lot more work than McGuan. So, and we might even end up, if we do 2 vendors, it's even more if we do like different vendors for each space, like Pam just said, it'll be not only more costly, but it's going to be more time consuming because we're going to be dealing with different people. And so, I mean, obviously you guys are here, so you understand how important the next steps are. But I think one of the things I looked at was, at the in-person meeting, everybody was talking about, how it's so hard to get the designs and everything, you can't see it in one place. So we created the Google Doc with everything on it now. And Pam's been adding to it. And I put some general feedback that we got from that meeting, but nobody else has come back with any other suggestions. Maybe Ruth's, jumped in a couple of times, maybe put something in there, but we really haven't seen anything else in that spreadsheet. And to make it, I'm just not sure how, if we're not critically analyzing it individually and then coming back as a group, we're not going to hit that deadline, And so I guess part of the idea is maybe I want to get ideas from you guys how to move the process along so that we actually meet a timeline. That's really important. Pam's got a huge list of playgrounds that some of these vendors have done. So that would be something if committee members had time. I know some of these are in different parts of Connecticut and far away, but maybe it's a good time to have people when they're traveling, stop in Danbury to look at something, or Shelton or any of those places. But I just feel like if we don't move forward, we still have to do Baker, but I want to spend the appropriate amount of time on Cherry Lawn because I would say this is like the premier one in Darien and the most well-used and well-loved in that way. So if we need to really make sure that this, checks all the boxes and we feel good about our decision. So.
Pam, I might have missed it. Did you update the list on the Google Docs? Okay, it's on the last slide, like it's on the bottom.
Yeah, it's on page 66, if that helps. I know it's a very long document, but I thought that keeping it all the information in one document and then adding new stuff towards the bottom was the best way to do it. I know some people do it on the top, but it just made it this.
Yeah, so I reached out to all the vendors, they asking where some of their current equipment or projects had just been done. And they, gave me some locations as to where you can see some of their equipment. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same design that they've put forward for us. But you can see some of their things. And I don't know how helpful that is if it's not the same design, right? So, but I think it will be helpful when we choose the finalists, for them to really come to us on this platform and discuss why their design is exciting. Got to get there.
Hey,
So
is
you
there
want us
any?
to revisit 5 to 12 for creative recreation. So that was outside of what the committee did, just as an FYI, everybody. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Was that Pam
Oh,
Garrity?
yeah. Sorry. Is there any way that our next meeting can be in person? I feel like when we were in person, we accomplished so much, and then it's just so like clunky. I mean,
I mean, I'm open.
it is what
I'm
it is,
always,
but can we?
again, I'm always open to being in person. I guess we went to Zoom because, we were trying to accommodate, especially people that have younger kids, and because we wanted that feedback and people that work and other things. But I'm willing to do the meeting is it August 31st, Pam, that you said?
Yeah.
And that's the week I'm taking off. So
Oh.
I would be available
I feel like we keep on leaving you out whenever we have in
I
person.
know.
And you didn't make
But-
that meeting either.
But I have not taken any time this
Oh,
whole
no, we
summer.
weren't.
So, but I would be available to jump on a Zoom meeting. That would be easy for me. But again, I understand, meeting in person. However, I do think that you did meet in person to look over the designs that I had laminated for you.
Yeah.
So I
It
don't
was
know
really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and
Right.
I get, you're right. I felt like there was more discussion, Pam Garrity,
Yeah.
on this when we were in person. And I feel like people have a harder time, like just looking at a flat design again and trying to figure it out. I
I
guess,
think more so too, though, the going to see the sites. Like I felt like when I walked onto like the playground, I felt it. Then all these things started coming to my mind, like, oh, the panels are too high or whatever the case
Yeah.
is. Like, unless you see it, which I'm going through the list now to try to see like where I can try to get to next week before the kids get back to school. Because I think that gives the most sense of like, oh, this is great or this isn't. Because it's hard to even see from those pictures.
yeah, it's just
The
flat.
height, and after getting feedback and seeing the first one being put in, I kind of feel like that much more like I personally want to do more due diligence. Like I feel like
Yeah.
looking at
No.
a piece of paper is not fair to our town to say, guys, this is what I'm thinking when we haven't been on the equipment either.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, like I remember when we did McGuan, I was concerned about the height. And when we had our meeting, I took the tape measure and I said, you see these bushes? It's 6 more feet than that. And people were like, oh, that's doable. And I'm like, okay, but even then, like you said, you weren't standing up there. You weren't, so it's still better to be in person. And so I agree. So I'm happy to make the August 31st again, in-person meeting. And sorry to miss you, Pam, just because it's on the calendar. And if people hopefully can make it, especially people that want to input, I just think that you're right. We do discuss more. And I feel like we're not going to end up talking more. I mean, I think we felt the same about it's just how we could fit creative recreation is one of our finalists because we hadn't put them in was one of our finalists, Pam. And I think the feedback I was getting from the group for 5 to 12, especially, was it felt like we were doing McGuan again. It was
Same.
McGuan 2.0, and nobody wanted to do McGuan 2.0 at that. I mean, and I don't think we do because we want different looks on each of our playgrounds because kids will be like, oh, bored or something like that. They'll feel like it's not going to be novel for them. And so I don't know if this meeting's going to change adding John.
Mhm.
And the question then becomes, does John have another thing that we can look at that doesn't mean McGuan? You know what I mean? Like, or
Well, the only difference is that it's actually even taller.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. And that's scary too, so, but anyway, I think Pam Garrity.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm so interested in this O'Brien and Sons. At least for the older kids, I'm so interested in this design because it is like incredibly unique and like very like to me intimidating looking up front. And yeah, then you get in there and you're like, oh, it's really not that bad. But I love the shock value of the look of it. And that's why I would like to explore that design.
Yeah, thanks, Pam, for sharing that. Yeah, I agree, Pam Garrity. I had the same response because I was like, it's so different, and we don't have something like that in Darien. And I think that we have so many playgrounds, and if we can make something different, I mean, I would like to see it personally. So Pam, that quite frankly was the reason Pam Gary, that we did not really even spend a lot of time on creative recreation.
Mhm.
And
Except for the
I
two-
like to save money too, but I just feel like I just can't do another playground that looks the same as another playground we just did. Because then
Right.
we feel like
I understand that.
and so that's why. So the question then becomes if, we have this small group here, if we should just, do we feel like we've made two good final decisions? That's the question. Do you know what I mean?
Can I add one other thing? Since
Yeah.
this Zoom, I've reached out to a bunch of my mom friends, all who live in my neighborhood, who have the little
Yeah.
guys in no elementary school, and to see if one of them would come on to our committee. But all of them keep piggybacking. Like, unfortunately, with their work schedules, it's a hard time for them to commit. But their big thing that keeps coming up is to fight for, and I know this was brought up again, some form of water play. And I don't know.
I'm huge on that.
They're like, if
thought of
I
that.
get water,
love
we'll come
water
on the
play.
committee.
No, you know what, it is interesting, Ruth, you said that, because when I did Playground by the Sound, that's a water feature. But one of the things we're finding with water features is they get broken constantly. Like that thing was, as soon as we put it in, it breaks week after week. Hose
But
broke.
that's because of the sand. I think Cherry
So we
Lawn
got- yeah.
really would be a great
Splash
space
pad
for
kind of
water
thing.
play.
Like that would be a huge win in an area that we don't have. And I know it keeps coming up, and we keep kind of like saying I think, Susan, the politics. I don't know why it keeps getting denied, but I feel like that's like the big thing that we can add that might be somewhat different.
I know
Right.
Where, like-
we thought of it when they were talking about the pool for Weed Beach and all that stuff. We said that space by the meadow that's being developed, we thought about like doing something there. So instead of doing a pool, doing like a splash pad,
Splash pad.
Splash pad.
up. And what comes up constantly, especially for town projects, is it's the money, honestly, because splash pad is basically pour and play with some, things put in and some drainage, but it is a lot of money, but
What if we're just throwing the wackiest idea? Like, what if you said, okay, we're only going to replace one of those cherry lawn sections, and instead of saying like we'll redo the older one, but we'll just leave the younger one for now and put that portion of the money towards a splash pad next door.
what we're going to run into, and we've had this happen, is as we start offering more amenities like that, what ends up happening is you're going to have this huge bump in traffic, and we just had this issue. I don't know if you guys are following with pickleball about bringing more cars to Cherry Lawn. So I'm a little hesitant to add something of that nature, because it would be a huge feature. It'd be the only thing in Darien. People would be like during a hot day, everybody in Darien would be there, right? Because it's like, fresh water. I just think Cherry Lawn might not be the place that we can do it just because of that, just because we've had that issue. And we as a commission are thinking about doing a traffic study, redoing some of the way the egress, because there's only one in and out there. And it's even like, if there was an emergency, honestly, I'm not sure the emergency vehicles can come in properly with the current roads, to be fair. So I would be hesitant to provide an amenity like that there, but I'd love it, and, I don't know if Ruth, I'm working on that meadow project currently at Weed Beach. That's the other committee I chair. And we had to reduce some of the work we're doing there because of budgets, but I would love to see if we could figure out a way to put it there. That would be a great space for me. And it would be, perfect, because it's a more of a summer warm weather thing, and that's a great spot for that. And we wouldn't have that issue about the traffic and parking as much. But anyway, who knows? Maybe there's a little water thing, like at for Playground by the Sound. We did it like as it doesn't have to be a splash pad, but it was like filling water. I don't know if you remember. I don't know if it still works, but it's like you filled the water and then you put it, and then it made go to a tunnel and came back. It wasn't a wetting the kids thing, more like how water moves. Does that make sense? It was filling and emptying more.
I think the votes would be that everybody wants a splash pad.
Splash pad.
So you want a full-on splash pad. So that I have to be honest with. Yeah, I know it wouldn't be I don't think it could be a Cherry Lawn personally, but my mind's always open, like I say to you guys.
Well, I could say this: Guilford just put a splash pad at our beach, and It is very small. It was donated anonymously, and it's small, but boy, it's created a really great impact for the kids and the parents. They love it. But I will get a figure on that just to see how much it is, because I went to Middletown Park and Rec, who just got a brand new community center, a brand new in-ground pool, which is gorgeous. And then you look over their drop down from the in-ground pool, and it's an incredible splash pad. I mean, it's as big as the pool. It's amazing. And it is so hard to go to other towns and see these great amenities. And then we struggle. And why don't we have that, right? So anyway, for the splash pad for Guilford, small one, I will get a figure on that.
I mean, I'm open to it, but I just want to give you guys the history and the 411 from the commission's point of view. So before we go this way, I want you to have what the history's been, and that's what I've provided. I would love to see water. Water's great. So we'll definitely keep that in mind. Ruth, thank you for that feedback. But let's go back to just even about the narrowing down. So really right now I'm at the number 5. I'm sorry, I should have said that officially, that I was at update and discuss designs for Cherry Lawn Playground. I haven't really said that. So if you look back at what at the spreadsheet, we had said, I'm just going to recap for you guys. The 2 we liked was Emmy O'Brien and Burke, right? And then for 2 to 5, I think we chose creative recreation and game time, right? Those were the 2.
And one other.
Was there one?
3.
There's one on the bottom. Sorry, it hit the bottom. No, was it Burke? No, wrong thing. What did you guys have down? I'm sorry.
I had Burke as well for 2 to 5.
Okay. Why did it zoom down? Hold on. Let me just go back. Yeah, we did have 3 and 2 to 5. You're right. Oh, we just didn't have any committee feedback for them. That's right. Sorry about that.
So I have a question just about the process.
Yeah.
Like looking at Burke 5 to 12, there are things I think are so cool about it. There are a couple things where I'm like, I think that's a bad idea. Like that like intertwining slide to me just seems like a massive hazard. So is it possible to say, well, what else could you put there? Or like, can you go back and forth and like negotiate with these guys? Like what they have to have more options.
Yeah, we did that for the last one, Pam Garrity, and it was great. Like that's why you have to narrow it down, because if we said to 5 vendors, do this, do that, we'd be sitting there like. But so that's why we had to pick the ones that are kind of going in the right direction of what we want to see design wise, and other ways that's how we were able to kind of drill down and say, we didn't like that. We had to do this. We changed panels out. You know what I mean? We could do whatever you want basically, because we're the customer. So
if we're looking,
go ahead.
I actually love that slide because I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, it's kind of neat that you're exiting out a total different direction as the other one. So it could be fun if 2 kids are going down at the same time, and who gets in. I thought it looks pretty creative, and I do like that design as well. That whole thing looks really fun.
It does. I think to me, the thing that stands out on Burke is that, and it's the small separate structure of that wall. Like I just love that climbing wall. And to me, the massive structure is just kind of, it looks awesome, but it's, here or there, but it's that I like that climbing structure. And I think that is the draw for us.
So what I was hoping with this document when we put together is we did the finals. And then what I was hoping was that people would go back and say what you're saying. I don't like the slide. I like this. Can we consider that? And then just input it into this document. And then when we came together as a group, we could say, hey, a lot of people, like someone could say same, like I had the same reaction as Pam Garrity. And so then we would then say, that's a good concern and something we should change on that design. So we'd be able to use that as part of our, what do we ask back for the vendors, what they can do? You know what I mean?
I guess this is also part of like going and maybe taking some field trips, which I'm probably very capable of doing this and seeing, oh, you're not going to decapitate yourself going down this underslide.
It feels like it.
It is actually very cool. So I think so I need to also, and I have the flexibility to do that, take my kids to some of these other playgrounds.
It's a good
and check them out.
staycation. It's a good staycation,
Yeah.
and you don't have to go away and book a hotel, and your kids are getting novel experiences at the same time. And you could take them for a treat, ice cream, restaurants, who knows? New part of Connecticut. But that's what we need from people, is that we need to solidify our 2 choices for each age range. We need to put feedback in there that's very specific. I didn't like the slide. I love the slide. I like the swings. I don't like the swings. I need a bigger pour and play, like so specific that we can then Pam could take the list, go back to these vendors and say, hey, this is what the committee loved your design, but want to see these changes. Can you do another turn of this design? And then that's not even the final design. And then, like we kind of go back, it's kind of going back and forth for a little bit. Pam, I think last time, how many changes did we do? We did, after the final, we did a couple more.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. We did a bunch. So that's why it takes so long, because we have to allow time for us to meet and for the vendors then to turn make those changes and see if it's possible.
The other thing that you have to remember too is that, or you wouldn't know this, but like for instance, game time, the rep that we're working with, he doesn't have the ability to make the changes himself. He has to go through the company. Whereas John Hollerbach, who we hired for McGuan, he's the president of his own company. So the turnaround for him is like snap, change, easy. Whereas the other ones are representatives of the owners, and they have to go through some red flags and red tape to get changes done.
Hey, Rick, did you have something?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to jump off for a client call, but I didn't know if while we have quorum, do we have to vote on the minutes really quick before it's okay for me to jump off?
Yeah. Anybody want to, Sarah, you might not have, did you take a quick look at the minutes there? If we were just thinking of just approving them, but if not,
I scanned it. Yeah.
So you're fine with it?
Yep.
Okay. So if someone can make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Sarah, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, so we're good, Ruth, but if you can, I know you're busy, whatever you're so good about those little things that I like to see. If you can put what you're thinking in the doc, I think that'll get people going. I mean,
yeah, and I'll be back up to Connecticut on Sunday, so I'll make a point next week to get to those playgrounds.
Okay, but let's definitely August 31st let's do it in person. I'm okay with it.
In person in the morning or in person at night? What were we?
I'd say, can we do it in the morning? Like, I feel like we see the playground more. What are you guys thinking? I mean, I'm amenable. What's going on?
The kids go back to school
Kids go back to.
So
Oh yeah, so 8:45 is that or not?
It's kind of a hard time for me. I mean, my kid's on a later bus. We're Ox, so it's
like you are.
I don't even. Yeah, yeah. So
why don't we?
Let's do it after buses.
Why don't we? Yeah, we could do that, or we could. If not everybody's at this meeting now, like Pam, maybe you could take a poll for us to see if people can do an in-person meeting, and if we could shift it to a later time so we can get everybody. But I know that then we lose people for work and other things.
It's got to be a special meeting anyway. Now that we're changing the location, it's not a Zoom meeting. It's going to be in person. So it has to be a special meeting. So therefore, we can change the time anyway. Now that it's going to be different.
Okay,
so
well, Pam, we'll do that. Okay, Ruth, why don't you go? Because I know you're in the midst of stuff, and we'll touch base. But why don't we'll see you next time.
Okay, thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye, Ruth.
But that way I think if we can get people in person, it'd be great. But if it turns out that we're losing people not being in person, by being in person, I'd rather have inclusiveness and have people at least present. I feel like if we can get the doc in order and people really can put the feedback from their visits and stuff, that's going to be the most important, because then we can all look at the doc and say, let's run down the list for each vendor. Like, what do we think? Do we really want to use, is this one of our finalists? What do we need to see from this vendor to make him or her or the vendor, the plan, the one we want to do at Cherry Lawn? That's what we need to do. So it's like really the next meeting, if possible, I'd like to make it like about going to final on it and giving Pam a list that she can then bring back to the vendors, because it's going to take them maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks to get back to us, right, Pam?
Yes.
Depending on the vendor.
What about the meeting, in person or Zoom, or however it turns out, 9:30? Start with a 9:30 and see what people can make
Sarah,
that.
Would that work
I
for
think,
you?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, because the other three aren't in school yet. So it's fine. Yeah. I know.
Bring them to play.
I
know.
Sarah, bring your kids and I'll have mine and they'll take care of them.
They'll babysit my three. So that should be fine. That should, once he's on the bus, I'm pretty good. Thursdays. Yeah. So
yeah, let's try. I mean, I can see, I think it's just important to get, something. I mean, in person will be great, I think. And especially knowing the space and really thinking about it. Because otherwise we're not going to be able to move. I mean, I think by the next meeting, we need to get that done for Pam, Gary, to go forward. Was there any other feedback for the cherry lawn thing that comes to mind? Besides what we talked about with creative recreation, was there anybody that had any thoughts about like amenities besides the water features, which was big, by the way?
So I think that if you're looking at what's the surface that we like, the poured
Pour and play.
Those sort of like I'm having a hard time looking past like the rigidness of some of these designs, but that's stuff we can tweak later and be like, curve this edge or expand it. If they give us a square footage and we can kind of manipulate that on site. Am I correct in assuming that or no?
You can. The only thing with the pour and play is that it's super expensive, and that's why you're not seeing a surface like McGuan at Cherry Lawn, because we just don't have the budget for it.
Well, that's right. But I'm looking at like the game time 2 to 5. So like that's what I'm looking at right now. And it has like a corner with like a hard point, but can we make that, keeping the same square footage, can we kind of make it more of a gentle curve, or like we can manipulate it a little bit within square footage, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to confirm that before
They tend to be rounded. It's a good question, Pam Garrity. The corners have to be somewhat rounded because of the way they pour it, and the way it actually, I think it doesn't adhere properly if it's too sharp of a corner. I guess the only thing is some of those pour and plays are put in place for fall zones. It's like so we might not be able to.
So they have to be within reason, but
so the blue area is the pour and play.
Yeah,
the blue areas.
That's right, and that design in particular just seems so much more aesthetically pleasing than what Game Time has presented, which is like this corner is pour and play. So
I think what happens is that they get like they're some of having done design stuff. It's just sometimes it's like hard to get like certain things manipulated to design thing, like in terms of doing like you have to make a curve and it's more work for them to do it on.
Cherry
Honestly, this is
Cherry Lawn also is just a weird shape. Like Cherry Lawn, it's like the big section, the older section is, and you guys know I've already said like I like symmetry, and so I like squares and rectangles, and like Cherry Lawn is just an odd shape. Like it cuts in, it cuts out. It's got a like even like the 2 to 5 sections got that slant right near the pretty tree. The section that the kids climb on in the 2 to 5 area. There's like it's not a hard 90. There's like a I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, it's not a hard. It's not a 90 degree.
It's a cut corner.
They cut over, and I'm sure they had their reasons.
Cut corners because I know that from tennis courts have cut corners.
Oh, okay. Look at you.
I spend a lot of that, but
so I just when I look at these pictures and I see what Pam's talking about, where it's like it's because I think they're taking the surface that we currently have with that. I don't know what it's called, Pam. Other Pam. Oh, you guys are both Pam G. We got to come up with nicknames here.
You have to get there. Yeah.
Maybe you guys, we could use your middle names. But we have that black interlocking that you can tell. Yeah, because the kids have to hop over it, right? I don't know what that's called, but anyway,
it's the edging, it's the curve. It's like a curve edging.
Okay, yeah. So I always just notice it, but anyway. So, but if pour and play is too expensive. I mean, we're keeping the sidewalk, right, in the 2 to 5 area, right?
Yeah,
And that never
been
has,
accommodated for.
that's never been an issue. No one's ever complaining about, oh, it's a hard surface. So, you
That's
know,
right.
yeah, and that
keeps us ADA, by the way, and that gives that accessibility. So then we don't have to do another pathway, you know.
Right.
Can you
So
can you just remind me, refresh my mind, what structures are staying on each of those? I know in the bigger one, the spinny thing is staying. Is that the only thing that's staying, or some people propose to keep some of them propose new swings?
There's two structures, small structures that we ordered from Game Time in the 2 to 5 area that are staying, because those were installed only a few
Recently.
years ago.
yeah.
That was before we knew we had the ARPA money. That was a long time ago. We replaced them because they were starting to go, like, in terms of their useful life.
So only those two structures in the 2 to 5 are staying? Because if you scroll down to the very last page of, hang on, let me just get there. Page 29, Game Time says they'll keep the spinning bowls and the spring riders. So, but why wouldn't somebody else?
No, I think
I feel like we need to do this more apples to apples. Like we decide to keep, you know, I love those spinny cups.
I
think those should stay no matter who we design.
Right. I think that every vendor agreed that they would keep certain things. And you're right. The small spinner, like cups, I think most of the vendors were keeping those. They just didn't state it in their design, but yes.
Okay, just so that we know in general. So we're going to keep the 2 new Game Time structures, the 2 spinning cups. And are you looking to keep these spring riders? Which I think we should.
Too. But I do too. I think we should keep them as well. But
Kids
I'll
love
clarify that. That's a very, very good.
I think they were replaced in a lot of designs, though, Pam.
Yeah, let me clarify that.
I feel like those and they're great, but I feel like they were kind of getting really worn out looking. Like, I think that was
if they are getting worn out, maybe their kids love them.
Yeah,
we can give them a fresh paint job, we can.
Yeah, I think that was the reason why it was getting replaced. Is that, you know, when you change the aesthetic of the playground, then everything kind of, you know, flows from that in terms of. I think they have a certain color too, and then if they're
like a tan and a red.
Yeah,
they're
so
not
then we like, you know, not that we have to be matchy, but it just looks good if the place doesn't look like we have some old stuff and some new stuff, because we're doing brand new in most of these spaces if we can. But I'm open to whatever. I'm okay with.
I'm going to clarify with each vendor.
But I feel like you see some of the designs, even with Burke, there's new things that kind of like some kind of like, I don't know. I see a couple of things that look like they were replacements for that, but who knows? But definitely, and if they
and then in the 5 to 12, we're definitely keeping that spinning thing.
Yeah, that's relatively newish.
And then was there discussion to keep the tire swing, or was that kind of like a 50-50?
There was discussion at one point about the tire swing and whether it should stay, but I think that's a very, very good point. And I will clarify with each vendor in their designs what they're keeping that we currently have.
Right. And if they think that the stuff we're keeping is good, like if they have to, we have to like make sure from a safety standpoint that they, like, even if they have how much useful life they have, because if it turns out that, yeah, it looks good now and we could use it for a few more years, do we want to keep that if we're replacing everything else that's supposed to last 25 years? I'm just putting it out there for you guys to just make sure. That's part of the reason, like keeping everything at the same age, because once things start to get replaced, it's easier to kind of, I don't know, just a thought. I'm not saying that's exactly.
Let me clarify that, because every vendor has a budget. So we need to understand what they're reusing and what they're not, because ultimately it's going to change.
And it's apples to apples, like you said, Pam Garrity. Because some people are replacing and some are not, and we're going to get less from new, and that's something to consider, right?
Do we also have just one split second to talk about this, donating the old pieces to this Guatemalan project? Which of course always sounds like a great idea, but I had asked a few months ago about donating the other stuff, and it seemed like everybody poo-pooed that, and they said it was a safety thing and with the liability thing, and it's not a good idea. But now all of a sudden we can send it abroad. If we're going before sending it abroad, is there any way to reuse it on somewhere that's not abroad, somewhere not
So the
locally,
challenge we run
else?
into the saving equipment and taking other equipment, we just had this happen with a swing set at Baker, right? And we got it from one of the school playgrounds, and we haven't been able to get it installed. I mean, and it just, when you have older stuff, a lot of, you have to get them properly installed and removed. And there's cost in that. So basically it's almost like a break even at a certain point, right? Because like if we had taken McGuan out to be donated, we'd have to have maybe coordinated with the company that would have taken it, obviously.
To remove it
Affected our
carefully.
timeline. You've done this. You do a lot of renovations, Pam
Yeah.
Gary, because you're a realtor.
Yes,
So you know what
faster
I'm
to
talking about.
demolish.
So like if you have to wait for someone to take the things out, it's just another element of complexity that if we're in a time crunch, we're like taking things out quickly, right? And
Okay.
we're not preserving them. But if you're waiting for someone else to do it, then we have to make sure, so that's going to be a complexity. Like I can't promise that we're going to donate these things or what's going to happen, but we have to have, like, our biggest concern is to get this stuff, is getting it in and out, basically, right? So we have to look at, if I said to Pam about this too, when the Guatemalans, and there's other places, not just, there could be more local, there could be more, US Northeast could take some of this equipment, but we just have to be mindful about what the trade-off is in doing that. Like, is this equipment, like, you're right, is it safe? Someone's going to have to indemnify us if they take that, like knowing that they're taking it as is and that we can't, and that they have to do, if they do decide to take it, they have to take it out when we need it taken out because of the time, because we don't want to take stuff out and then be waiting 6 months for our stuff to come when they can do it. So I just think Pam's going to look into it, Pam Gary, but at the same time, I don't want to put another management thing on her to do, because it's a lot. And so if there are people that want to interface and it works, but just keep in mind that it sounds great from a conservation sustainability standpoint, but we just got to know what we're getting into by doing this. Do you know what I mean?
I did just get another email from a local woman in the Fairfield County that wanted to know about how much the McGuan playground cost, and apparently she's associated with some sort of child care facility, and their equipment is needing to be replaced, but they're astonished by how much money it costs. So I did say to her, you may want to go back to your group, and maybe you could consider looking at Cherry Lawn. We're going to be reinstalling new equipment, and if it was carefully taken out, when they would have to take all the risks, they would have to spend money, right? And we would save money, because it costs, as we know with McGuan, it was $22,000 to remove that equipment. And so there are some benefits to being able to do that, but as Susan said, that it's also a different pathway that has to have different considerations.
It's definitely much more time consuming as for us as a group to have to worry about that. I mean, there's a savings, like she said, but now we have to then, close the playground and have people that are not, then we're not, I mean, it's just, it's going to be
it's worth looking into.
We'd look into it, but I'm just saying that the people that take these playgrounds are probably using volunteers. They're not using professional contractors. So it's going to be, we might get in a spot where it's going to take more time to demo and things like that. And we want it to be quick and done so that we can put the things in, you know what I mean? But anyway, I'm open to it again, but I just don't want to put another thing on Pam where she has to manage that, because that's a lot of work. So Pam,
I'm okay. I'll look into it.
Yeah, she's looking into it. But, we just got to know that it sounds good on paper, but it's not as easy as it sounds. That's what I want to. There's definitely going to be more to do to it than just giving it away. Okay. But let's see, that is a great tie-in, because we're talking about what to save and what to give away. So to keep. So let's do.
I just had a
okay. Go ahead, Sarah.
Quick question. Sorry, since I know, we're always talking about time, and time goes by so fast, and meetings and stuff, and it's hard to get everyone together. I know that we had Ixnay working on Cherry Lawn and Baker at the same time. Do we know when we want to start discussing Baker? Are we waiting for Cherry Lawn to be like
I really
signed
honestly,
off before we
yes.
even discuss it? Okay.
I really wouldn't want to take on Baker just because now I don't feel like we're not really focused on Cherry Lawn, to be fair. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the most important thing. And it doesn't make sense to start doing Baker until we get some traction on Cherry Lawn. We don't have,
Okay.
I don't feel like we're at a place where
Yeah.
I feel comfortable diverting the attention that they already don't give to Cherry Lawn to Baker at this point. I think Baker is going to be something we look at in late fall after we've like finalized and put to bed Cherry Lawn. But if you see something while you're traveling and you're like, it's cool, just keep it like in the save to talk to us area. I mean, I think that's going to be a really different space. So I feel like we're not going to need to sit here and be like, oh, we're thinking of using this same design at Baker. I don't see that at all.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay.
So, but that's a good question. I mean, in terms of timing, because that's why I want to wrap up Cherry Lawn, because Cherry Lawn's going to take, I mean, honestly, because Baker's much more simple, even if we start it later, we might be done with that sooner.
Be done with that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds really crazy, but it can happen because it's more space and stuff. But as long as we can do it in the timing that the ARPA funding allows us, which is another concern, we need to make sure that we hit those, spend it in the timely manner. And it seemed like a lot when we started, and now it's not. So
do you think it's even possible to be like, oh, we love Burke for this design, but could we take this element from somebody else and put it over at Baker? And I don't know, maybe we could put our, if we're at a,
I'm okay with that. It's just that I guess the what we were thinking of for Baker was more naturalistic, and to make it more integrated with the environment, because it's a shady park, so it's a little different, But I'm open to it. Whatever, I'm okay with thinking out of the box, because that's how things happen and change happens. So I'd consider that, Pam. But in terms of just getting Cherry Lawn done, let's just get Cherry Lawn done, first. If that helps. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Yeah. Okay. I had an idea, and so I'll
is it an idea?
I'm gonna file it away.
Like, it's an idea that doesn't have anything to do with Cherry Lawn, right? It's not gonna.
No. Totally.
Totally file it away, and I'm sure we're gonna totally appreciate it, because I remember you talking about a lot of great ideas for Baker when we first started. Let's keep those, because those are gonna be great, and we're gonna need them. And that'll make the process go faster. So if nobody else has anything else, I'm gonna close the meeting, because it's 9:56 and I really want to be appreciative of the time. And now I want you to go out and enjoy yourselves with your families, and maybe go to visit a playground that we might learn from. That's a little, my kids are a little older, so I don't have that luxury. If I bring my dog, that's probably not appreciated. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the summer, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person in a couple of weeks. But thank you so much for your time making it during this, for us. So we really appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great
day, guys. Bye, guys.
Bye.